Jumping height is one of the most honest tests of a cat's physical design. It doesn't measure how good the cat looks, how fast it runs on flat ground, or how famous it is on the internet. It measures exactly one thing: how much raw power the legs can generate and how efficiently that power moves the body upward against gravity. When researchers compiled the data for every cat species and ranked them from lowest to highest, the ranking looked almost nothing like what most people would predict. The cats most people think of as the strongest performers finished in the middle. The cat most people think of as the fastest performer finished near the bottom. And the winner turned out to be an animal that most people wouldn't even name if you asked them which cat jumps the highest. Before getting to the ranking, it's worth understanding why cats jump the way they do. Every cat species evolved its jumping ability in response to the specific demands of its environment. Cats that hunt in open grasslands and chase prey across flat ground don't need exceptional jumping height. Cats that hunt birds, that live in steep terrain, or that need to clear obstacles to escape predators, developed far more powerful vertical leap. The relationship between body weight and leg muscle proportion determines the ceiling. A heavier cat needs proportionally more muscle to generate the same jump height. This is why the ranking ends up producing so many surprises. Raw size is not what determines the winner. The data for this ranking came from a combination of field observations, controlled measurements, and biomechanical studies that looked at how different cat species generate and use force. Measuring a wild cat's maximum vertical jump is not straightforward. Animals don't perform on command, and a cat that can jump 5 meters won't necessarily do so just because a researcher is watching. The numbers in the ranking represent documented observations of cats jumping at or near their apparent maximum, combined with biomechanical modeling based on muscle mass, leg proportions, and body weight. The results are consistent across different sources, and the ranking they produce is stable enough that the major positions don't change regardless of which specific study you use as a reference. The bottom of the ranking belongs to the cheetah, and this surprises almost everyone who hears it. The cheetah is the fastest land animal on Earth, capable of reaching 100 kilometers per hour. People assume that an animal with that kind of speed would also be an exceptional jumper. The reality is the opposite. The cheetah is built specifically for horizontal acceleration over flat ground, and that design actively works against vertical jumping. Its legs are long, and its muscles are optimized for stride length and turnover rate rather than explosive upward force. Its body is light, and its center of gravity is set for forward movement. When a cheetah jumps, it reaches somewhere around 2 meters of vertical height. For an animal its size, that's a poor result. The cheetah is the clearest example in the cat family of a species that became so specialized for one thing that it paid a price in every other physical category. The sand cat comes in near the bottom as well, but for completely different reasons. The sand cat is a small desert animal that lives in environments where jumping simply isn't required. Desert terrain is flat, prey is small, and the cat hunts by stalking through sand rather than by leaping. Its legs are proportioned for endurance movement across hot ground, and its paws are wide to spread weight across loose sand. It can jump, but nothing in its evolutionary history pushed it toward developing exceptional vertical power. The bobcat lands in a similar position, not because it's physically weak, but because its hunting style relies more on short sprinting and pouncing from ground level than on high vertical leaps. These cats near the bottom of the ranking aren't failures. They're animals that optimized for something other than jumping. This pattern runs through the entire ranking. The position a cat occupies reflects its evolutionary history, not its overall quality as a predator. The cheetah is the most successful pursuit predator in the cat family. It catches prey at speeds that no other cat can match. Its position near the bottom of the jump ranking is the direct cost of that specialization. Evolution doesn't give every advantage to every animal. It gives specific advantages to animals that live in specific environments, and the cheetah's environment rewarded speed so heavily that jumping simply wasn't a priority. Every cat near the bottom of this ranking is near the bottom for the same reason. It's excellent at something else. The domestic cat enters the ranking at a place that consistently surprises people, somewhere around the middle, with a vertical jump of roughly 1.5 meters. That doesn't sound impressive until you consider the body size. A domestic cat weighs about 4 to 5 kilograms on average, and it can jump 6 times its own body height. Scale that ratio up to the size of a lion, and a domestic cat would be clearing 9 meters. The domestic cat's jumping ability relative to its body weight is exceptional, built over thousands of years of hunting prey in environments where clearing obstacles, reaching elevated positions, and escaping threats required powerful vertical movement. The house cat that jumps onto your kitchen counter is performing proportionally one of the more impressive athletic feats in the cat family. It just doesn't look like it because the cat is small and the counter is not that high. The proportional performance of the domestic cat also explains something that most cat owners have observed without understanding. A cat can jump to the top of a refrigerator from a standing start with almost no visible effort. The jump looks effortless because it is relative to the cat's capacity. A domestic cat jumping to a surface 1 meter high is using a fraction of its available power. When a domestic cat misjudges a jump and falls, it almost always lands on its feet, using a righting reflex that activates in under a second. The same physical design that makes them exceptional jumpers also makes them exceptional at recovering from failed jumps. The whole system, the jumping power and the landing recovery, evolved together over millions of years of a small predator living in environments where getting things wrong at height had immediate consequences. The ocelot and the lynx come in above the domestic cat. The ocelot is a medium-sized cat from South America that hunts in dense forest, and its jumping ability reflects the demands of moving through cluttered terrain where it needs to clear undergrowth and reach elevated positions to spot prey. The lynx is built for cold environments with deep snow, and its powerful hind legs, which evolved partly to keep it from sinking through snow crust, also give it strong vertical jumping capacity. Both animals land in the range of 2 to 2.5 meters, which is respectable without being exceptional. They represent the broad middle of the ranking, cats whose jumping ability is good enough for what they need without being a defining feature of their design. The big cats enter the ranking at this point, and their positions are more predictable than either the top or the bottom of the list. The jaguar reaches around 2.5 meters. The tiger, the largest cat alive, manages around 3 to 3.5 meters. The leopard, which is famous for hauling prey up into trees, hits around 3 meters. The lion reaches about 3.5 meters. These are impressive numbers in absolute terms. A lion clearing 3.5 meters of vertical height is a genuinely powerful piece of biomechanics. But the numbers are lower than most people expect for animals this size, precisely because of the weight penalty. Every kilogram of extra body mass is a kilogram that the legs have to lift. The tiger's maximum jump height is limited by the same factor that makes it the heaviest cat: its own body. The leopard deserves a specific mention in this ranking because its jumping ability shows up in a behavior that most other cats don't share. Leopards regularly carry prey heavier than their own body weight up into trees, sometimes to heights of 5 or 6 meters, specifically to keep it away from lions and hyenas. The legs strong enough to make those jumps are the same legs it uses to haul an antelope carcass off the ground. The leopard's jumping ability isn't primarily expressed in clean vertical leaps. It's expressed in the functional strength that lets it move heavy weight against gravity repeatedly, in terrain that no other large cat uses the same way. The leopard in the ranking hits around 3 meters of clean vertical jump, but the total picture of its physical capacity is more complex than that single number. The caracal enters the ranking above the big cats, And here, the numbers start to become genuinely impressive. The caracal weighs somewhere between 8 and 20 kilograms, which puts it solidly in the medium-sized cat category. Its vertical jump reaches around 3 meters, which on its own would be enough to beat the lion and match the tiger. But what makes the caracal's jumping ability remarkable isn't the raw height. It's the precision and repeatability at the top of the jump. Caracals are famous for one specific behavior. They leap from the ground and knock multiple birds out of the air in a single jump, sometimes hitting 2 or 3 birds before they land. This requires not just height, but timing, body control, and the ability to redirect force at the peak of the jump. A caracal doing this against a flock of starlings or pigeons is one of the more technically impressive athletic performances in the cat world, and it happens because the caracal's legs can generate upward force that's completely out of proportion with its body weight. The serval enters the ranking close to the caracal, and its numbers are the most disproportionate of any cat on the list. A serval weighs between 8 and 18 kilograms, about the same as a medium-sized domestic dog, and it can jump around 3 meters vertically. On a pure ratio of jump height to body weight, the serval produces numbers that no other cat matches. The reason is its legs. The serval has the longest legs relative to body size of any cat in the world. Those legs evolved specifically for hunting in tall grass, where the serval needs to see over vegetation and then launch itself down onto prey hidden below. The jump it uses to hunt is a downward pounce from height, rather than a pure vertical leap, but the same leg musculature that powers that pounce is what generates its extraordinary vertical capacity when tested directly. A serval jumping 3 meters is an animal the size of a large house cat clearing the same height as a male lion. The snow leopard comes in near the top of the ranking, and its jumping ability is the most visually dramatic of any cat on the list. Snow leopards live in some of the most extreme mountain terrain on Earth. In the Himalayas and surrounding ranges where cliffs, rock faces, and steep slopes require constant leaping across gaps and between elevated surfaces. Their hind legs are exceptionally powerful, proportionally longer than those of most other big cats, and their wide paws act as natural shock absorbers for landing on rocky surfaces. A snow leopard can jump roughly 9 meters horizontally and around 4 meters vertically. In its natural habitat, it regularly crosses gaps that no other large predator would attempt, moving across sheer cliff faces with a confidence that comes from having legs specifically designed for exactly this kind of movement. The snow leopard's body is a mountain machine, and jumping is the skill that defines it. The winner of the ranking is the puma. A puma can clear approximately 5.5 meters of vertical height, more than any lion, any tiger, any leopard, and any jaguar alive today. It can cover over 12 meters horizontally in a single bound. These numbers are so far above the other large cats that the ranking isn't close at the top. The puma wins by a margin that makes its nearest competitors look significantly outclassed. And the reason almost nobody expects this is the same reason the puma has been consistently underestimated throughout the history of wildlife research. It's classified as a small cat. The classification of the puma as a small cat is one of the stranger facts in wildlife biology. A puma can weigh up to 100 kilograms. It lives across a range that stretches from Canada to the southern tip of South America, the largest range of any wild cat on Earth. It's the 4th heaviest cat species alive, and yet the formal classification puts it in the same category as the domestic cat, the serval, and the ocelot, because of that piece of throat anatomy that determines whether an animal roars or purrs. The puma doesn't roar. It makes a sound more like a scream or a whistle, and that keeps it in the small cat column no matter how large it gets or how high it jumps. The irony is that the classification that has consistently made people underestimate the puma is completely unrelated to the physical capability that makes it the best jumper in the world. What gives the puma its jumping advantage is a combination of factors that the other large cats don't share in the same proportion. Its body weight sits in a range that's heavy enough to generate serious absolute force, but light enough that the legs don't pay a crippling penalty for each additional kilogram. Its hind legs are exceptionally powerful relative to its body, and its spine is flexible enough to store and release elastic energy through the jump in a way that adds height beyond what pure muscle force alone would produce. The puma hunts deer across steep, rocky terrain in mountain environments across the Americas, and clearing obstacles, dropping from heights, and jumping across gaps are all regular features of its hunting strategy. Every aspect of its physical design reflects an environment that rewards exactly the kind of explosive vertical power that produces a 5.5-meter jump. The ranking produced by this data doesn't change what any of these cats are. The tiger is still the largest cat alive. The cheetah is still the fastest. The lion is still the only cat that hunts in coordinated social groups. But the jumping ranking reveals something about how evolution distributes physical ability that raw size and reputation tend to obscure. The animal at the top of this particular list is not the most famous, not the most feared, and not the one that most people would name if asked to guess. It's the one whose legs are built for the specific demands of its specific environment, producing a number that beats every big cat on Earth by a margin that leaves no room for argument. The puma wins, and it isn't close. The data also raises a question that the ranking doesn't directly answer. What would the numbers look like if you corrected for body weight and measured only proportional jumping ability? In that ranking, the winner would not be the puma. It would probably be the serval, whose leg-to-body ratio produces vertical jumps that, scaled to human proportions, would represent clearing a 4-story building from a standing start. The domestic cat would also rank extremely high on a proportional basis. The raw ranking and the proportional ranking tell different stories about different things. The raw ranking tells you which cat can physically clear the most height. The proportional ranking tells you which cat's design is most committed to jumping as a core capability. Both are interesting. The raw ranking is more surprising, and the surprise, in this case, belongs entirely to the puma. The lion's position in the ranking also challenges a common assumption about big cat dominance. Lions are the apex predators of the African savanna, the animals that other predators give way to, the animals that can steal kills from cheetahs, leopards, and hyenas simply by showing up. Their authority in that environment comes from size, social coordination, and a combination of strength and endurance that makes them effectively unchallengeable at ground level. But jumping height is determined by physics that social dominance doesn't override. A lion clearing 3.5 meters is performing well for an animal its size. It just isn't performing as well as a puma, and no amount of social authority changes that calculation. The snow leopard's jumping numbers also explains something that footage of it in the wild makes obvious, but that's hard to quantify without the data. It moves through mountain terrain in a way that looks genuinely impossible for an animal its size. Watching a snow leopard cross a cliff face, it appears to cover distances between footholds that should be out of range. The data explains why that impression is accurate. A 4-meter vertical jump and a 9-meter horizontal jump applied to a mountain environment where the cat chooses exactly when and where to use that power produces movement that looks more like the animal is deciding which rocks to visit rather than struggling to cross difficult terrain. The mountain is not an obstacle for a snow leopard. It's a hunting ground specifically suited to what the snow leopard can do. There is one more number worth mentioning before the ranking closes. The puma's 5.5-meter vertical jump represents its documented maximum under field conditions. Biomechanical modeling based on its muscle mass and leg proportions suggests the theoretical ceiling may be somewhat higher, possibly reaching 6 meters under ideal conditions with a full running start on flat ground. That number has never been directly measured because the conditions required to produce it don't occur in controlled settings. What has been measured is consistent enough to establish the puma as the clear winner by any reasonable methodology. The margin over the next best performer, the snow leopard, is large enough that no measurement error changes the outcome. The ranking is settled.